All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Titus, your host today, and I'm joined with my good friend Dave Corley. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Titus. Thank much. Pretty day out here in St. Louis. Doing well. Just been running and gunning. Got some new shipments in lately of calls and such. So yeah, can't complain. And if we did, no one would listen anyway, right?
Right? I don't know. You'd be surprised. It's kind of amazing what some people listen to and spend their time and energy into. But yeah, so you've been on here enough times, and those of you that are listening right now, if you haven't heard an episode with Dave on it, does a lot of things. I think he wears a lot of hats, but one of the things that always interests me, I mean, all the things you do, Dave, interest me, but he owns a company, upperduck.com, and if you're into waterfowling at all, which I think a majority of you are that listen to this podcast, Dave owns a company called Upper Duck, and he sells calls, all kinds of different calls, specialty calls is what I guess I feel. Is that how you would kind of describe it, Dave?
Yeah, yeah. We do a lot of, well, like you just mentioned, specialty stuff, but a lot of the run of the mill as well. Basic colors to basic J-frames to what we feel are the best, really, of the basics, if you will. And the way I say that, I try to get through the meaning of, yeah, it's like the best of the best. There's a lot of great calls out there. There's a lot of things that we never sell that we probably will never sell. And the layers calls, the R&T calls, Tim Grounds calls, Riceland, Polk pattern. Chris Polk does a great job. We're going to be carrying some other calls of his as well. So we really pride ourselves in looking for what we feel and what we use out there on a daily basis, and then trying to make that available to the masses on a more available time frame, if you will, until COVID hit, and then things have been a lot tighter and harder to get, and on a more timely manner. But it would be great if we can even get it to the next scale, and that's our plan. But some of the best groups can only make so much as well.
Right,
so,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you saying some of the custom and some of the things that we do, because we do things differently than everybody else by far. I mean, you can open up, a magazine that you might get once a year in the mail, right, in August, September, and there's 40 to 50 different call makers in there, and that's great for them. It's for us, we like to choose a handful and make it a place some duck hunters can go and look at some of the great things available that we prove out. In the blind, we get people asking us all the time, "Hey, can we send you our calls and just try them out and then put here's 50 of them on your site?" Like we just don't like to operate like that. We like to run calls for a whole season or more and see what works and what we feel might need some help on. And we'd be always happy to get feedback. Can't be everything to everybody, so we just try to be what we feel is the best of the best to those who are looking for things that are already proven out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good definition of it, of what you guys do and your site. And I'm going to try to say this in a way. I thought about doing this without you on the podcast. I'm not going to put you on a spot in it. Hopefully I don't make you feel uncomfortable or anything, but for the listeners, I'm more saying this for them. Well, let me ask you this first. How long, and I know I kind of pick on JJ Lairs and Brett Crow a lot while you're on here, just because he is a California guy, and it is by far my favorite call. And that's mainly, I haven't dipped into my mind just went blank. The other type of call that I just kind of started blowing last year. My brain's going blank.
Cut downs.
Cut down. Yeah, I just started dipping into it, and me and you had a phone conversation the other day about how, to you, air presentation, all that, you don't even think about that, but I think it's because you've been blowing duck calls so long. I could totally see where you're coming from. Because most regular duck calls, I'm the same way, right? Like I don't think about it, but I think. Did you start on cut downs, or where was like what was your first duck call out of curiosity? Because I'm going somewhere with this when I'm asking you right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So going back and my first duck calls that I ran were more of the cut down styles. My dad, and I could stare at it right now, look over to the side, and his original ult that he had is now sitting on my shelf, and that's that ult and a couple of others that he has, and a couple of other just kind of imitation cut down ults, were ones that I learned on. So, my dad wasn't like a competitive caller or by any means. He only got the duck hunt, sparingly, if you will. He's a school teacher, couldn't take off work, weekdays. He couldn't take off weekdays. So, long story short, we go on weekends, and he blew what he thought was an imitation of a duck, and he was always in great shape, and he could put a lot of air through a call, and back then I didn't know the difference between a cut down and a regular J frame or anything, or a Tennessee style or nothing like that. But so I started pushing a lot of air because I just watched him and listened to him.
Yeah.
And then, I think what happened was I started getting the J frames, and I was pushing a lot of air through them.
Yeah.
And, I would only find a couple that I really, really liked. I remember when the Daisy Cutter first came out, I was running an original R&T, and the Daisy Cutter came out, and I was just like powering through that. And the guy that was selling it to me up here in St. Louis, Doug Baugh, who's still in the duck world and is out at Purdy Farms. And anyway, that's another whole story. But Doug said, yeah, you kind of got a chance to run this thing. Most guys, can't,
Right.
or at least on the first run, type of thing. So yeah, I've always probably overblown calls, or love the cut down, love the longer read stuff. That's why I love the Maghan A5 or even a hybrid with a long read. But, that's another reason maybe why I can, I myself can blow, a lot of guys can blow T1 with a 7.5 or an 8.0 in it also. I have a couple guys around the St. Louis area duck clubs that will blow a 9.0 read in a T1 layers. I really don't. But, to kind of fall back to your question more, the cut down is something that you have to use different air presentation in, most people, to get it to sound like it should and to make it work like, it should. Yeah. So, that's why I talk about them and I love them. And then, 10 years ago, really got to spend a lot of time starting to spend time with Jim Ronquist back then. And it was just the regular mono, then the LT, and, then the LA cut. And I probably fell in love most with that LA cut. I might have talked about that. And then actually just recently, we talked last about what calls are on the lanyard, what would you have on today? And I think I mentioned the LA, and I went down to my duck room, and there it is on my lanyard, the last day of the season. And I had my Jim Ronquist Rockin' R by R&T. And I totally forgot to mention that, because last year, that's what I did have always in my bag at some point on every single hunt. Did I pull it out every time? No, but I blew it a lot, especially late season as well. Really ran that black Rockin' R with just a silver band on it. And then I got mine's did a batch with some gold inlay. And I'm telling you, that thing has just been like an oak tree. I mean, I didn't tune it, change it, nothing, and sounded exactly the same as I did when I started the season. And Jimbo and I, like I said, we talk about that call now either in the off season, and it's just a great overall call to have in your bag of tricks for sure. So does that help you out when,
Yeah, I
answering
kind
that
of
long
want I
question
kind of want to
of,
come back to that rock and R. That was actually on my little separate list that we discussed
okay.
because you mentioned it like you said on the last one, but we didn't dig in. So I kind of have some questions I want to ask you on that. But to kind of follow along why I was asking you about your first call and stuff, kind of goes into how basically I'm going to kind of skip some stuff real quick and go into you mentioned on the last one how you're friends with pretty much all these guys that you have their calls on your site. You're personal friends with, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of, I mean, I just was at a trap shoot charity event on Saturday, and several of the guys that were there, guys that I hunt with. One guy that I hunt at his club, and then a couple other guys as well, either hunt next to us or we go hunt now on trips with them, or we hunt with them during the season, back and forth at each other's clubs. So, oh yeah, absolutely, it's a great brotherhood for sure.
Yeah, and so we know Brett Crow lives in his shop's in Chico for JJ Lairs, and
Mm-hmm.
you're out you're out east for us. And
Yeah.
but how long have you known Brett? I mean, you guys have been friends for quite a while too, correct?
Yeah, 10 years. And of course, I always knew of him before that.
Mm.
And I knew of his duck calling contest out there at Worlds in Easton. And I knew some other guys that knew him, some guys around here that were kind of in the call contest scene, whether it was Jason Matheny, a few other guys, Steve Kitchen, guys like that knew him better. And I think Steve's even in the waterfowl and outdoor sales space. He sells Sitka and he sells R&T and stuff. So he knew a lot more guys than I did from outside this area. So then, when we started Upper Duck 10 years ago, I called him up and said, hey, here's my concept, here's the business plan. And that's when we started, actually doing business together. So I still have the very first call he sent me.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah,
What is it?
It's a hybrid in all black polish with a gold band, and the gold band now, or brass band now, is heavily tarnished. It is like almost dull dark brown, I guess what I might call it. I just, don't do anything to it. It's just all character now. So he sent me that call along with my first order. I don't know if maybe I went through this before.
I don't
the
think
first
so.
order ever 10 years ago was like 6 calls. Put them on the site. They sold like right away. Like a week later, I went to 12. Then we went to like 24. And we're doing 48 at a time. Now we get like 400 to 500 calls in at a time.
Wow.
So, that very first call that, he ever sent me that I kept to always run. Cause I had ran lairs before, had an older one and wasn't in great condition. I had even bought it secondhand. I never had bought a new one prior to that. I just did a great secondhand purchase or trade on one, and then just fell in love with it. So
what was your thoughts the first time you blew one?
Yeah, the first time actually I ran a layer, it was funny because it had that shorter read in it, the regular 5.0, and I kind of overblew it. And then I was trying to figure out, because it's kind of funny. I've ran into a couple of guys that have said, oh yeah, I love these layers. You can put a lot of voice in them and things like that. And so I kind of did in the beginning, and I learned personally. For me, I'm like, I do nothing. I just blow air through, out of my system that is just makes zero noise. I try to make zero sound or side effect sounds coming out, and just let the call do all the work. Yeah. So
do you think there is calls that you need to do that with? Because I feel like I've always been like the mindset of do not use voice, do not grunt and growl and all that. But maybe there is. Maybe it's just because of the calls I started out with and blow now. Maybe there is calls that you're supposed to do that with.
again, I wish there was a manual on some of these
Right.
calls, because I never really had one that came with one. And I know guys still talk about, oh, this call is great, and you can grunt real well into it. And I think if you ask anybody from like the Brett Crows and the Jim Ronquists and the, you know, guys that are probably top tier, of all like calling contest guys, Corey Nickum, I can just kind of go on and on. Seth Fields, I'd say if I were to call up my buddy, Brett Edelman right now, who's done well in contests, and Brett, what calls do you grunt in? He'll probably say none of them ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because those guys are just that good.
Mm-hmm.
And they know how to bend a reed and do all that versus probably putting voice into it. But I think the average person, average caller, either they learned from somebody else, or they heard about it, or they tried it, or they just don't know. So maybe they do. But I could tell you that I've gone away from it anytime in the past. I have years ago. I haven't done that, but I've also been around a lot of like world-class callers who have taught me to just push air.
Yeah.
And, I've seen some guys on videos or whatever turn calls around and try to blow from the other end and say, hey, just how you practice, whatever. Or you could just take the barrel off a call and practice blowing through. And, what I have done over the years, work with guys that come to me, I just try to say, take the barrel off. Now act like you're, calling a duck from 50, 75 yards away. And then if they're making noise or grunts or oof or goof, then you try to get them to just go, well, you couldn't really hear it, but I just pushed air through my mouth and like it was going through a call, but there was no noise or grunt or words really through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you said, watching any videos, that people put out, trying to find something to send somebody that's trying to learn, like, okay, let me go see if I can find something that would be a good instructional. There's a Brad, what's his name? You probably know him too. Brad, his name's going out of my head right now. His last name.
Brad Samples, maybe, or
no. Shoot, he makes his own calls too, and he does cut downs.
Okay.
He's in Arkansas. Elite Duck Calls. Elite.
Okay. Oh yeah.
I can't remember his last name.
Yep.
He does one of the best tutorials, I believe, that's on YouTube of anybody. And if he's not the specialty guy at it, he'll actually call in. He has guys come in and film with him that, like, say if it's a spec or something, he feels like he's not the top, he'll have a guy that is, that's won multiple worlds and stuff. But anyways, he does really good, and never once in his videos, never once in any of this stuff that like really good duck callers have put on there have I ever seen them say grunt or, make that noise. I almost think it's something, like you said, someone that never been instructed or never looked nothing up and tried to learn on their own, which is totally fine, have kind of taught themselves to do. And then, like you said, I think it passes it down. They're trying to cover in and bring that more deeper sound in, which again, I'm not saying nothing wrong against anybody that does that. But I think that's what started that, because like I said, I've never seen anybody saying in a tutorial, as far as coming from professional callers, to say, oh, grunt into it,
Right. Yeah.
So.
No, I think you're right. I remember there was a video I saw regarding a spec call. It was, I can't remember. It wasn't Riceland. It was one of the other. It might have been Redbone or one of the others years ago. In one of the tutorials was try to go, type of thing. But that's different when you're running a goose or, the spec that's high end type of thing. But yeah, Brad Allen.
Allen. There you go.
He's a world champ. Yeah. So with the league, he's done a great job. They do.
Actually, he's been
really
on this.
Well
he's been on the podcast too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many Brads and call makers and everything. It's hard to keep them all straight. I'm the same way. But I think what it comes down to also is it's what you feel comfortable with. I mean, like I said, I had one guy who makes calls for a living who said, oh yeah, I love my layers. I can put a lot of voice in it. I'm just like, okay, well, I would have never, I heard that once before 10, 15 years ago, but I haven't done that, type of thing. So everybody's different, and there's no right, there's no wrong. But I think for the most part, if you're trying to improve and get an overall better sound out of a call, I think, the most advice that I've got from the best guys out there, has been just let the call do the work. And if the call isn't working for you, got to try another call.
Yeah.
And then, because if you're pushing air and it's a call squeaking on you or just sounding flat or whatever, it just might not be the best cut call. Not a good cork, not a good combination of the tone board and the cork, or the reed's bad or what have you. And that's when you get into guys helping you modify and or just have the right reed cut and the right cork cut for you if it's this traditional J frame that has that. And then if it's like a layers, which is everything's predetermined, laser cut, engineered, then it's just finding the right size reed for you and the right call for you as well.
That's a great tip. That's a really good tip. So going back to Brett Crow, and you've known him for 10 years, and I think he thinks very highly of you, because sending you 300, 400, 500 calls, he knows you're moving them through. But not only that, I think you guys are friends, right?
Yeah.
Well, Thomas. Yeah. So Thomas, I'm bringing this up, and I hope this don't make you uncomfortable at all. But we became friends too as well. Over the last couple years or whatever. Maybe not quite that long, but I feel like our friendship has definitely grown from the first time we ever talked. But I had put a little story on Instagram, and for anybody that follows on Instagram that seen my story and maybe could, tell you what the backstory behind all that is. I don't know if it's just here. It's probably everywhere, but like I've got a lot of stuff over the years to where, like, why aren't you supporting this store or that store that's right here in your hometown or whatever? And we all know Brett and JJ Laird's is right here in California in Chico. So I mean, that's and it. If I didn't like their calls, I would. To me, it doesn't matter where they're from, right? I think as waterfowlers, we're all supporting each other, and the better we get along, the better the sport will be and the longer it will last, But anyways, I've had people over the years like, why don't you support this? Why are you having them on your podcast? Just dumb things people say or ask, why aren't you having them on your podcast? Why are you always supporting guys in the Midwest? It's like, well, it has nothing to do with that. It's whoever becomes my friend. And, how do you know how many people I've reached out to here that don't want to talk or don't want to do something? But anyways, when I went on there and did that little story and then tagged you guys and said, hey, there's fresh calls up, by the way, and everybody listening to this right now, go check the site. There is definitely still some really good looking calls on the site as usual. A lot of new layers calls up, and I think you might maybe release some special ones later, maybe this week, I don't know, but go on there, check them out. I snagged up a few, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 myself on this last push of calls. I've been bugging poor Dave for a while about when we're getting some calls on the site. But anyways, that story came up, and I started getting people in my DMs, kind of like little nasty grams, like, oh, why are you buying from here? Why aren't you going over here to this store and that store? And I'm like, hold on a second. Well, I told Thomas about it. I didn't really say nothing. I said, hey, he's my friend, whatever. But Thomas brought up a really, really good point. And I don't even think you knew this, Dave.
Okay.
But this was probably this might have been 5 or 6 years ago, actually, when we first started our channel. There is a show at Kittles. I don't know if you know of Kittles.
Yeah. They're a great group.
Great people, great store. I talk about that store all the time too. And they're local, right? For me, right? Mm-hmm. And they sell layers as well. And I bought my first layers from Kittles. It was the first time I ever seen them. I went outside, blew them. Then a friend of mine told him, like, yeah, I blew that call too. And I was like, wow, I was impressed right away. Bought the first one, and the rest is history. But anyways, they have a show every year I think it's usually at the end of July. Maybe it's in August, where they have calling competitions. They have vendors come out. COVID really hurt that because they used to be a lot bigger, and he's definitely bringing it back. It's getting bigger every year again, and more vendors are coming back. Just, you know how it's been for everybody. But anyways, Brett was there with his own booth and had several layers sending out beautiful calls, and Thomas is vlogging. I go, hey, I can't make it to that show or whatever you want to call it, expo, but take the camera up there and vlog it and we'll put it up on the channel. Well, Thomas reminded me when I had telling him these people were saying stuff like us not supporting local people, which is not true at all. That's not how I am. That's not how I operate. But he called me up and goes, hey, I want to tell you something and remind you of something that Brett Crow himself said, because Thomas, he does a whole thing, and I'll have to share it on Instagram so people can go watch that, because that's so long ago. I'm sure we probably only had like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers at that time. But he gave us a sound file on a few of the calls. I think it was his T1, maybe even the one that he actually won his competitions with. He did some really good sound files. It's cool on this video. Then Thomas said, okay, hey, where can we find you? And what is the best place to buy your duck calls? Guess what he said? upperduck.com. And we're there. And not to say that Brett wasn't saying, hey, come at Kittles, but he knows as far as an online store, no matter where you are in the world, that's where you can go buy a duck call. Like if you're in Calusa, yeah, stop by Kittles and buy a call. That's not what he was saying, but for ease of use for people watching on the internet that could be in Florida or Maine, upperduck.com. And I thought, wow, I go, Thomas, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I didn't even think of that. He even knows that's where he pushes people to for as far as online.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. So, a lot of people have told us to, like, hey, you guys are like the Amazon of, the best duck calls, because we do ship out super fast, and we don't have the availability right now every single week to week that we did pre-COVID and early COVID. But yeah, we pride ourselves on fast turnaround and trying to have a great selection. And, our customer service, we put our names out there, we put our phone numbers out there, and, our email, and, it's also worked against us. I've had people who never bought a call from us, unfortunately go after us and make bad claims, because it turned out to be, we did an investigation and all this stuff and found out who they were. And just, unfortunate that some people go that route to try to, like you said, you get DMs from people saying, hey, how come you aren't doing this or that? You're always going to get those people who are, just A, they don't understand, or B, they're just always going to be complaining, right? They don't know what it takes to go to start your own business, to put all the money into website design and management and marketing, and get behind a brand, and, give it all you got, and do hundreds of videos that are sound file videos. You can go on our site and see all the videos we've done for sound files of the calls from T1, small bore, hybrid, mag hen, A5, and then you got short barrel, daisy cutter, original, LA Mondo, regular Mondo, shorty Mondo. We got so many R&T and so many layers, videos, sound files on our site that we put all that time and effort into. And people get mad that when a buyer goes to our site and sees that and says, okay, yeah, thanks for doing that, I'm going to buy a call from you now. I don't know why they get mad. I just don't, it's, I guess their prerogative, but it's some people who put a lot of effort and a lot of work and do all the right things. Other people don't seem to like that. They say, well, you should give it to this group just because, it's their turn, or, saw how that works in politics, right? Not always very well. So, there's a lot of great groups out there, and other great groups that carry, product, and we support. And, I buy a lot of stuff from Cabela's.com, it just so many other really good people in this industry, and it's a shame that you get those who are just. I think I said this on that last call we had. It's like we get people hating on us because we don't tag enough of our manufacturers or somebody who makes one acrylic or whatever, and then they get on there like, how come you aren't tagging me? I'm like, well, I'm sorry, man. I just trying to get this post out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of went away from that. We're just like, there's a couple groups that work really, really well with us that are our, absolute premier partners, and we talk all the time.
Yep.
And they're good people. So if you're good people and you treat other people well and you treat your partners well, usually a lot of good things happen.
Yep.
It's when the treatment isn't good or the support isn't good. That's when things don't always, work the best, and people can go their other ways. That's fine too.
Right.
But yeah, I just love the fact that you guys are in California. We're here in St. Louis Metro, and I've got so many people from here all the way to the East Coast that listen to you, and so many people from out there all the way out east that have bought from us, and so it's really cool. It's like I said, it's a big brotherhood, and
mm-hmm.
You can't make everybody happy, I matter of fact, I've always heard nothing but incredible things about, Kittles out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Brett's a big fan as well. And then, after that, it's like, I know it seems like there's just a lot of big shops, and from like where we are at Kansas City, Rogers, they ship shells and gear,
mm-hmm.
mostly. Yeah. I buy shells from Rogers. Yeah. They also have sold layers in the past in R&T. Wow, it's like I'm not going to boycott them because they got the best prices on shells,
right.
Best customer service from me on shells. So yeah, I mean, this industry is also changing a lot, and so much has gone to, to digital, to web based, and Instagram and Facebook, social media, and all that stuff. So I hope Kittles gets back, and they have a great event. Do you know what there's coming up here this summer?
I gotta look the dates up. I think it's always in August, and they do awesome. Yeah. They do awesome sales. I mean, they have really good prices on ammo. Even through COVID, they were still doing that the best that they could. And they do have a website. It's just I don't think they're getting as big of a batch of calls, probably. So they go really quick. So that's part of the deal, but yeah.
They go quick everywhere, and it's pretty funny. It's it's a power to everything's going way back to obviously the man who started it, Joe Lairs, and then Brett, worked there for years, and then became sole owner, and what he continues to do is awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you look at how many other people have said, I want to be like him, and I want to, be in the contest. I'm going to try to make a duck call, so I think he's inspired. So has, guys like R&T, John, who was a world champion, and then over and over. And then, and then he bought the company, he bought R&T calls from Butch. And so there's a lot of great stories in the industry, and the guys are just like started on their own and started their own line, and they do their own thing, and they're still doing it. So, kudos to them. And we're always looking to add and offer more stuff. Sometimes it's just, like I said, really hard to get a lot of people that are making calls, and if they're not different, or to us, if they're not going to be what we would use every day, it's just we can't do it. We don't want to be that same company, like I said, who has 40 to 50 in the catalog, and it's just not us.
Right.
That's our differentiation. One of many. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Actually, and I was looking it up. It's usually, it's like the third week of August they do it. They'll do a calling competition. They'll have big sales on everything. So, yeah, I just gotta.
Cool.
You can check that out on their site. They have, it's kittlesoutdoor.com, and if anybody that is in that area, the Sac Valley, or even in California, you can make a good drive. It's a worth event going to. It's fun. But now let's go back. Let's back up. And man, we had a lot of topics we were going to talk about, but we're already 35 minutes in, and I'm like, man, we haven't touched them. But
Time flies.
I did want to ask you, maybe it's a quick answer, and that's totally fine, is the rock and R. So you had
Okay.
mentioned it last time. Is that a cork reed, or not a cork reed, a cork, oh,
Kind of a cork wedge, yeah,
yeah,
cork
is it
system.
it
Yeah.
is? Okay.
Yeah.
And what
It's
is
a
it that you
standard.
like about that call so much? I mean,
Well, it does produce a lot of volume. And,
mm,
I think I mentioned this before. A lot of times, a lot of what I hunt it could be flooded, either corn or timber pockets or right around the river. And you got to be, you know, loud on the days that there's a lot of wind or there's a front with
mm,
wind or what have you. Because, it seems like some of our best duck hunting days are when, there's a front or there's a lot of wind and you got to cut through that. You know what I mean? And if you're around a lot of trees and, over a levee, but you see birds running right up on the levee or on the other side, you got to try to bring them in. You got to reach out. And, some places you're always on the X, right? Or some places you think you're going to be on the X that day and, you can get skunked. You just never know. But it's always, for me, I'd rather have, I think I talked about it last time, a call that you're able to always have that volume and then
mm,
learn how to manage it to bring it down.
mm,
But I can't take a soft call and manage it to break it out really loud. And so that's
true.
why I love the volume calls. But no doubt when, if it's just a cold day and it's a really light wind and birds are just dumping in and you're just trying to pull them 10, 20 yards further, closer to you, then you want a softer call, then that's when I always have that on my lanyard or go in my
Mm,
bag as well. But the Rocket R, I think the overall difference of the sound it makes from a regular Mondo is what I have learned to love. To me, it's even closer to the old Olds than the Mondo is.
mm,
So that's probably why, I had success with it and ran it a lot,
mm,
last year, always had it in my bag. And, maybe I'm a little spoiled too, because, working with Jimbo every time he's here every year in the St. Louis area at our big duck fest, he's always giving me tips, and everybody who buys a call there,
mm,
is walking through stuff and you listen. And so, I picked up one of the things he taught me years ago. I don't say a word, but as close as I can get to a hut or hot without pronouncing it, that's how he,
mm.
kind of puts that pressure into a call. And I've learned to just pop a lot of my air through a cut down that way. But again, I don't pronounce and I don't stop anything to make a sound. It's just like the framework of something of that, just to get it out of the call fast and furious.
Do you have
And
a?
then that makes the pop, pop,
Do
more
you
of the
feel
pop of the bark.
comfortable? Hold on a sec. Do you feel comfortable like demonstrating that? Like you don't have to hold it right up to the phone, but I've had guys do that in the past, like demonstrate something over, and it's the sound file's still pretty good. Do you have a cut down you could kind of just demonstrate for people maybe that are newer listening, just the sound you're talking about? Because I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I haven't ran this one in a bit. Hold on, let me just
Yeah, maybe
grab it.
do like a little sequence. You can set the phone down and just do a.
Hold on 1 second. Let me try this.
Okay.
This is totally ad lib, so
Yeah, yeah. I
you
know.
got
I
me on
caught
this
you
one.
off
Hold on.
guard.
No, hold on a second. Okay. Kind of make it natural around my got a lanyard on. I'll hold the phone off at least to the side. I'll just
Okay.
give you a little taste of what I'm talking about. More of a popping
Mm-hmm.
sound to get it to bark. I don't know how that came through.
Yeah, good.
So
It sounds good.
yeah. So for me and guys that are, cut down experts out there that I've learned from,
Mm-hmm.
it's more, I don't know if you heard it, it's more of a, pop, pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop, versus a wah, 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 more of the drawn, whiny.
Well, can you demonstrate
Type.
that? How about this? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I should have talked to you about it before this, but sometimes that's the better content, right? So can you do the cut down, the pop, 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 and then grab whatever other call you want and go wah, wah, drag that out just to hear the differences, because they are a huge difference in sound.
All right, let me here. I got an A5 that's like right on the front of my call collector shelf. So I just set that down. All right, this is going to be interesting. I got a piece of blue tape on it. It says it's a 7.0 read. So,
Okay.
All right, let me do that. I'll do just 4 to 8 licks on a cut down, and then I'll go to a layers A5. Okay, hold on.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Massive difference. That sounded good though. That came through good.
Well, good. I mean, I got to talk to you before we do another one of these. You got to give me a heads up.
I know.
Running a call.
Hey, if you don't want, you can always tell me no. I won't think less of you.
No, that's good. That's
no,
good.
But I
hope that helps.
It does. I think it will help people, and it's good for me to eat. I like having sound file stuff too to go back and reference to, like your site. Actually, your channel, you do have the YouTube channel too, right? Where you have all those a lot of sound files.
Yep,
yeah. I go
YouTube,
there. I go there a lot about a month before season, just to like try to nitpick my stuff and go, because those guys that you have blown, any of those guys on there are really good. And I'm like, okay, that's what part I'm leaving out there. You're just trying to fine tune every little thing you can, and some people maybe wouldn't notice that difference of that chop, that pop, pop. The cut down, and then you do that A5 and just that whiny, just wah, wah, wah. Like it's just more arsenal in your bag, right?
Yeah. Oh, and that's exactly it. It's, they talk about mallards, and they, when they're coming south, migrating for that deep winter, they're looking to pair up, right? Find a mate.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, they're looking for sometimes that exact same sound. They may have heard that hen that they've been following or whatever. I don't know, again, I don't know the exact truth or, specifications of all that. I've heard some biologists talk about that. They're looking for, a mate, and it might be the same one they've always, or they've heard before. But this also I think the bottom line is you want to sound like ducks no matter what, and sound like, hen that you're trying to attract. But, many times, again, the Drake call works great too. Sometimes Drakes are just like looking to hang out with other ducks, and then they want to make sure they're not decoys, because the last group of ducks they flew over that weren't moving much, he felt some things on his feathers. He's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So you got to do some convincing, especially later in the season, and we're halfway down the continent here where I'm in St. Louis, and, they've been shot at from Canada all the way through, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, North Missouri, up, there where Habitat Flats is. And then next thing you know, it's like, okay, they're halfway down. So they've seen a lot already. They've heard a lot. So yeah, the difference is sometimes just, it's also a different sound that they hadn't heard, because maybe a lot of the same guys blowing a lot of same average stuff, and then you can be different, above average, and better and more creative, and just really hone in. You mentioned something just a couple minutes ago. You're like, you go to the YouTube site to try to listen to what other guys have done, and that is awesome. And listen to real ducks on a refuge, and then listen to guys that are really good, have won contests. And I know some people say, oh, contests are, that's not a real duck. Well, a lot of contests are, like the East End and live duck, and we do real duck at Duck Fest or live duck, and, meat contests. Those are, sometimes you push the call even there to make different sounds that you might not do every day or all day in the duck blind, but at least you're showing what the call can do and trying to get the judge's attention. And but in the end, a real good quack and a real good sequence of a greeting and then a comeback. Those are all pretty basic that you're going to use anyway out there when you're trying to bring ducks in. I mean, and then there's a day all you do is just go whack, whack, and it could just come right in and you put 10, 20 yards on a plate and you're there. So, but listen to as many ducks as you can in the wild or sound files of those, then go to the call and then try to do that on the call and do what the other guys are doing. Even if you're sounding like a guy on a call who's sounding like a bunch of ducks, you're way better than just trying to do something on your own. Right. And then when you get real good, or if you want to take it to the next level, then listen to the differences between what cut down or mondos or rockin' R sound like. And, listen to 2 or 3 of those in a row, then go listen to a hybrid, a T1 and A5, or a daisy cutter, a short barrel, in a original. Listen to those different. You're like, oh wow, there's so many different things you can do on a J frame versus what the sound file on a Mondo, LA, or Rockin' R is doing. There's major differences.
Yeah. And you had such a good point a second ago about it. Kind of just made me think of myself, and maybe that's something I can do better at this coming season. Is I tried it last year, and I feel like I started out the season good doing it, and then it kind of fades away. And that is having the different calls on your lander, which I always do. Like, say if it's for mallards and you got say whatever. For me, a T1, a hybrid. My T1 has a 370 in it. My hybrid has a factory reed in it. And then I used to a lot more. I don't think I did this much this season, is have like a mallard whistle on it. But you had such a good point, because there's times we get so stuck in a rut blowing the same call with the same reed, let's say, right? And we're working these 6-pack of mallards, and they circle once, circle twice. They're taking a look, they're listening, and you can just tell. I mean, if you've ducked kind of long enough, like they're not going to come in. Maybe you change your sequence, maybe you change it to more quiet, maybe you just chuckle, whatever, and they still ain't coming down. That would be the point to where I need to remember, like, grab the other call, or maybe just the whistle. Or I've seen it to where I stopped calling altogether, and that's what finished them. Like they wanted to know you were there. They heard you. They seen your decoys. Now the subtle approach, and that would be what would finish them. So I mean, it's always a constant learning game in waterfowl hunting. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, you're
gotta try different things.
Spot on. I mean, there's times where literally, and I hunt with some guys who like, I don't have a call, and sometimes I kill more ducks with no call. I'm like, that's great. Some guys will just literally sit behind or sit in a blind in a pit, totally camoed up, and just wait for ducks to just come right in. And on good days, that could happen. Absolutely.
Right.
But it's more fun to wait a little less and be more active and be a part of getting them there, the challenge of getting them there and putting them right in front of you. So, and like I said, I can't tell you every season, we get a day not too far in. We're like, okay, that didn't work. I change up one more thing, and I look over and we all look at each other like, okay, next batch, like, no call. We're not going to call them, and they come in and they'll circle once, 2, 3 times, and they fly off. We're like, okay, screw that. We're calling them.
And that's the other thing is that every group of birds is different, so every chance you get is, it's either going to work or it ain't. I mean, there's some days it's just hot and they just all come in just like you want to, like you see on a movie or something. But for the most part, every group is a learning experience, It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like, I know you had times when it's like, okay, we're definitely not calling it this next group, or even if it's a single or pair or whatever. And then it's like circle once, circle twice. And then one guy picks up a call. He's like, we're like, oh, what are we doing? Are we calling or not calling? Then we're like,
Yep.
The duck is still in the air, and we're like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I thought we were not."
Yep.
And we laugh.
There's
So
that one guy that
it's
just can't
fun.
help himself, huh?
Well, and half the time that's me. So I'm the call guy. And so yeah, I mean, it's so much fun. But then what I like too is I really like if we are calling them, and I am calling birds and trying. I think I'm getting them in, and I'm getting shots, letting other guys in blind, of course, get shots. That's like the best ideal day for me is when might have a guy like full blind, even one guy outside the blind, and if you just get everybody a shot, that's to me, it's like I feel I did my job, and I'll shoot last.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot. I usually shoot a tighter choke and a little bit bigger shot because I'm not usually the first guy that pulls up that says, I don't usually pull the trigger on when I say T for take 'em. Usually I'm, I don't know, maybe any of my buddies listening to this are going to call me out on that and say that's BS. But, I try to at least or tend to shoot later, I think. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and speaking of, sometimes when it's like that other big argument you have in the blind was, all right, take them. It's like, oh, wait a minute, there was 8 more right behind them. These 4, and then you're like, oh, I didn't see those. Or well, yeah, but bird in the hand is worth,
Yep.
Then you have that argument. Well, you should have called a little bit longer, and then just waited for the other group. That goes. It's like, just the fun arguments you have. It's like, well, this is a really horrible problem to have, right? When
I know
you don't know if you should have taken these 4 because there were 8 above.
Yeah, that's a good problem.
Horrible first world problems to have.
Yeah, no
in this
kidding.
country.
I know, no kidding. Hey, so what's the one thing you're gonna do differently in this 2023 duck season this year?
One thing I am going to do differently, I would say, just Saturday I was out at a charity trap shoot, and I shot an over and under, of course, not a course, but it's my first preference when I'm shooting clay birds versus a semi-auto. And I am going to start the season, I would say, and try to go all year unless it's a nasty rain day of ice where it might get frozen up on that action. But I'm going to try to shoot my Cerakote Beretta 12 gauge over and under all season with my shot cam mounted on that. I had never mounted the shot cam on that, but I'm going to go away from a semi-auto this year. Like I said, unless there's a couple days that it's just not doable, but that's what I'm going to do different this year. If to fully disclose, I think that's my commitment. We'll see how it goes, and I might miss less or miss more, but I don't know. You're
going to save some ammo, probably.
What's that?
You're probably going to save some ammo not taking that third shot.
Yeah, that third. Well, and it's it's also, I guess it's a 6 1/2 dozen the other, because that third shot, sometime if you get several ducks in, you got a cripple out there. It's easier to pop one for your dog. But at the same time, I'm like, is it going to make or break my season? No, I can't imagine. And so, that's what I'm going to do differently. What about you?
That's a good question. I don't know if it'd be differently or trying to fix some things, but like when we go on what me and Tom's talked about, when we go on the river hunts, whatever state it's in, just river in general, weed. I'm about to sneeze here. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. We want to get, we're going to try about a dozen full bodies out and add that to our arsenal of little tricks. Not saying that's going to make a massive difference, but that's just something we're going to do different, that we've actually never even bought any full bodies, and maybe that's just because we didn't hunt rivers like we do now. But I think just to add that little bit of maybe flair, it might not change anything, but then again, I think it's just going to give a better look. So I don't know if that's kind of as dramatic of doing something different as you were. I didn't kind of spend the time thinking about that for myself, but I just think little things like that, to throw it in the boat when you're out on the boat, and even really on some refuges that we hunt that have some little mud, like little mud islands or things with,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's as real as I can get the look. I've seen a lot of aerial shots of waterfowl out on, grasslands and wetlands. I mean, that's what they're doing, and I never have that with me, so I'm gonna try that this season and give it a shot and see if it helps.
Oh yeah, I think that's great. I've had a couple dozen of full bodies, and I've used them a lot. Used them a little less over the last couple years, but I've also had like one or two dozen of full flocked that I keep separate and rig them up differently than the standard deeks that are in the spread as well, just so I know they're mine and whatever. Sometimes I go out there, I just put in like 12 really nice, like you said, if you do full flocked or like you said, a full body. Some of the water we hunt, it's a little taller than a full body. The stakes you get that are standard, but no, I mean, gosh, for years, I had a pit down in the boot heel of Missouri, right at Arkansas, the last exit before you hit. And then, we would put full bodies up all over in that flooded rice, because that was so shallow, and you could put those stakes in any water down there in those rice fields, because the length was always sufficient on those stakes. And man, I tell you, yeah, up on the field levees and stuff, sometimes just adding all that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of full bodies, so yeah, you're definitely talking my language right there. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thanks.
Watch now, the full body sales are going to go up all because of you, Titus.
Yeah, right. No, actually, Final Approach came out with some last year. I'm really impressed with their decoys. I don't know if you've ever used any of them. They've kind of made a comeback. They were dead in the water for a while, but the last couple of years they got some carvers that are world renowned. I think one of their carvers, I want to say I don't want to exaggerate too bad, but it's probably going to be more than what I say. It's 12 to 15 time world champion, and the other ones are the same, pretty much close to that. Yeah. And not only that, because the carving can be one thing, but then the paint job's a whole nother ball game, and then the longevity of the paint. But we've been running for 2 full seasons. This will be our 3rd season this year, and I am really, really impressed, because they're using the what's it called? AVNX uses the same paint. It's basically like baked on.
Okay.
Oh, what's that called? There's a
Is it
style.
powder coated maybe, or
No, it's kind of
more metal.
No, it's not, but it is similar to that whole concept. Because I mean, you can sit there. Some decoys you can sit there and scratch on, and it comes right off. The paint comes right off. Like AVNXs or even these, it's basically baked in, and it does not come off. I mean, they can be banging on each other. Because I used to not use Texas rigs on my decoys, but then when we started hunting the rivers and hunting out of the bow lot, but that's the only way to go, just for pickup and move quick and all that stuff. And now that they're banging together all the time, I mean, there's no wear and tear on these decoys. And I'm for 2 seasons, I'm talking about almost purposely trying to abuse them to the point you're trying to see what they're made of, and there's no issues. I mean, there's no wearing off, no fading. I'm really impressed. Yeah. And
I'm going to try them then.
Their paint schemes, like they got their mallards look great. They're as far as a few of my personal favorites, they even have cinnamon teal, which is cool. They came out with those last year, but their teal's great. Their green wings, their blue wings are really beautiful looking, and they're tough as nails. They got the cinnamon teal. They got the spoonies, though that's probably the prettiest one, just because of all the color of a spoonie, and they're tough.
Oh, yeah.
You got the mallards. They look good. The pintails. I say on the pintails, the body size is a little smaller, and that wasn't, they had told me that was an issue they had with the manufacturer. It wasn't supposed to be that size. But as far as the carving and the paint go, it's bar none, so.
Well, you convinced me. I don't know. Just hearing that story, I'm going to go out and I'm going to definitely this spring, summer find a batch of. I'll find them new wherever, either on their site, Final Approach, or
Rogers
wherever
too.
the best distributor is.
Rogers.
Yeah, and I'll get a dozen or two.
Try. Okay. Do you like widget? Do you hunt widgeon much?
We get some in here.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Their
get some
widgeon,
widgeon, but
their widgeon are by
go ahead.
far the prettiest decoy. Like you'd almost
Okay.
want to put it up in your office and not even hunt over it. Really, that's
All
the
right.
best widgeon I've ever seen, for
All
sure.
right. Well,
But
it's going to be like months from now when we have a podcast. I'm going to say, okay, here, I'm going to go back. This will be like January, February of 24. I'll be sure to check in with you how I did with my
yeah,
over and under only 2-shot season and my final approach mix in of full flock season. So that's what I'm
well,
going to do differently.
you're going to be on before that again. I guarantee. Well, we won't wait
Well,
that
I
long.
know, but I won't be able to do my results. I won't be able to give you my results till after the season. So
Okay.
I'm going to have to remind myself.
Yeah. Oh, I'll remember. I'll remember. Yeah.
Awesome. Too cool.
Well, man, I don't want to. This is kind of a long conversation. We're getting close to an hour, but maybe let's just touch in for 10, 15 minutes and maybe call it good. But let's talk about like shooting practice and including powdering your shotgun. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, and how do you approach that for yourself?
Yeah, every gun I got, I have put on a patterning board of some sort. Sometimes it's been at a really nice big one at the Gateway Gun Club or Pacific Gun Club down in Pacific, Missouri, not far from where I live. Or I just been up on my farm and I saved some pizza boxes. This is kind of crazy. If you ever are looking for a good patterning board or like a Target thing, save some of the XL pizza boxes and stick them in your garage and then take them with you out. Cause man, they work awesome. You just take a quarter or like a small cup and put a circle around the, middle of it with the Sharpie and then kind of color it in. And that's your big dot, right? And just put some lead down range on it at 30 or 40 yards and see where it is. And that's totally helped me. Yeah. And so like that Beretta over and under that I shoot, I had it Cerakoted the barrels and everything, and it's awesome. And I've banged it up, and I'm gonna hunt that all year, like I said. But I know it's good. That Beretta 300 I shoot semi-auto the last couple of years, I knew it was good. I put it on a patterning board. Even before that, I just shoot a lot of, Benelli's probably was my go-to before that. And it's always helped me because I've always either shot like I've done a lot of heavy shot and done a lot of just that Federal Blue, right? I think I talked about it from Rogers, and those are like my go-to shells. And then recently I met the guys a couple of years ago to talk about, buying from friends and getting to know a brotherhood and all that. The guys at Boss were just, they were awesome. Zach over there and the rest of the crew. And I think he's unfortunately moved on right now. But, I kind of went to that shell also because my dad was real sick in 2020, knew he wasn't going to be around long. So his old, 50-year-old Remington 870, 2 3/4 inch only shell with a fixed mod, I wanted to shoot that. So I, went and bought a case of those Boss shells for just 2 3/4 inch. And of course, shot phenomenal with it. And, I think always knowing which shell works really good and you're the gun you want to shoot pays off. It just pays dividends. You're going to spend, a ton of time doing everything else and, scouting and, driving and do all that stuff. Make sure your gun shoots where it should.
Right.
Like Rob Roberts, my gosh, he's made a living out of doing that for people who don't have the knowledge or the time or both or whatever. I think it's a great industry. I would love to retire one day and, just pattern guns for a living. Because I like that stuff.
Yep.
Every new pistol I buy too, it's the same thing. I just bought a brand new Beretta M9. No, yeah, it's M9A4.
Oh yeah, that's the military.
Yeah,
version.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a FDE, brown. It's awesome.
Mm.
And first thing I did, I go down the range here in Baldwin, put it on the paper, and then dial it in perfectly. Right? It does. Yeah, it has a red dot. But even if it had an open sight, I had those guys down there, open sight guns pistols I bought, just tap over it to get what I think is more perfect and more in line.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot the ammo you're going to shoot, in the duck blind. Shoot it on paper.
Yep.
Get it dialed in, because there's just no substitute for that. And if how many times have you had like, how did I miss that? Well,
Right.
might be your shot. If you say that several times,
Yep.
it could just be that you don't have the right combination. And then shoot more often too. Like I said, Saturday there was a charity trap shoot. You shoot 50 trap birds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. It just keeps you going, keeps your muscle memory. Go shoot skeet, which does even way more, dimensional training
Right.
for you. And overall sporting clays is, of course, awesome. We got a place up here not far from a lot of the duck clubs called Blackhawk, and that's a great sporting clay place to go and just hone your skills and keep fresh and always get better, right? I mean, how about you? What do you do off season wise? Do you shoot much, or are you just so busy flying helos?
Well, I do fly a lot. Like when duck season's over, it's like I think that's part of the duck depression is knowing that all I'm gonna do is work until the next duck season, try to work as much as possible and whatever, prep for that and bills and this and that or whatever, or get family trips and this, which is blast. But for me, as far as shooting, like I was just thinking that about when you were talking about that place called Blackhawk. We had such an awesome place that I feel like I really didn't take advantage of. I mean, we used to go there a lot, but it was a really cool. It had trap there, but we really liked going the skeet and then the also shooting their what's the course called when you go through
Sporting clay.
the sporting clay. Yeah, they had a course, that the sporting clay course, which was really cool, and they'd give you a golf cart and you'd run through that whole thing. And then the skeet was kind of one of my personal favorites. And man, they shut down a while back, and that was a heartbreaker because it was only about probably 25 minutes from my house, and I wish so bad that they had that now because I would probably take more advantage of it. It's easier to say that once something's gone, you kind of kick yourself, but I do like doing that. That helps me a lot. Like you said, it's almost more to me because sometimes that stuff can be different than shooting a duck, in my opinion. It doesn't make you worse by any means, but like I think it's more like you said, the muscle memory of shouldering the gun properly, looking down the barrel properly, and just how you shoot in general. But like I think the thing that may help me so much, I pattern as well. I didn't start getting to that till probably 4 years ago. And I used to remember thinking that how stupid that was that people did that. Like, it's a shotgun, and it's the same comments I get from people now. And it's just lack of knowledge, right? You don't understand how important that is. But now after you do it, you're like, my goodness, I should have been doing this years ago. And this does make a difference because there's some ammos I've shot. I tried tons. I did several videos on it years ago, and I tried every brand under the sun, everything that was possible. I bought one box off the shelf. I shot it, made some videos, and seen how it did out of my personal gun because every gun's different, and even a different model of my gun is going to do different, right? And I was seeing some holes in it the size of bigger than a teal, and I'm like, right in the middle of the pattern, and I'm like, not saying that I didn't shoot in front of it or shoot behind it. But like you said, there's sometimes they're floating there, and I'm thinking, my goodness, how in the world did I miss that bird? And I would say that several times, like you said. And part of that is also getting better, being better at being a wing shooter or whatever in general. But I think my biggest thing was two things. It was that getting the right ammo and the right choke for my gun and not deviating from that. Number two, the biggest thing, and it's really right up there with the one I just said, was the shot cam. That shot cam.
Oh yeah.
The first year I used that, I did it on all my hunts and go watch, and I could not believe how much I was shooting behind the birds, you know. And I thought I was a decent shot. Well, that just made me realize, like, you can, because of the shot string, because of the trail of pellets that go in a string, you can lead a little more than you actually think. And man, when that next year, after watching that, my shooting percentage went way up. And I actually, last year, a friend of mine owns a website and an app. It's a Freelance Hunt Stats is what it is right now. They're changing the name of it to North American Waterfowler. But what it is you can track locations. Personally, it's not public to anybody, but it's like a place where you can track what birds you shot, how many birds you shot that day, weather, wind, who was with you, put your notes in there. It's super slick. I love it. And I tracked awesome. My shooting percentage last year, and I couldn't believe. You want to hear something funny? I got a 28 gauge that I hunt with that was new for the first time last year. I have a 20 gauge, and I have my 12 gauge. Well, my shooting percentage, and mind you, if you shoot one a little bit more, your percentage is probably going to go down a little bit, right? Just because if that's the higher volume. But my 28 gauge, I didn't separate that and see what my percentage was, but I already know, like, I can go look at the hunts that I use my 28 gauge and see that I was shooting around 70 to 75% accuracy, which my 12 was, like, I think I was in the high 40s. And I attribute that to being more precise and taking your time more on your shots, because, like, okay, it's a 28 gauge. Like, I'm not going to go reach out there farther and this and that. And, so I'm like, man, that's how I need to have that same mindset and same concept no matter what gun I'm shooting, you know? Because it's amazing.
Oh, totally.
It's amazing how, okay, so your accuracy goes up. Guess what else happens? You don't shoot as many shells, but you still harvest the same amount or more birds, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, I totally. Yeah, that's a great story. You know, for years I would quail hunt, pheasant hunt, and drop down to 20 gauges for that. And then not long after, I was shooting quite a bit with my own bird dog, short hair pointer. I went to 28 gauge, and I killed more quail and pheasant in my life with 28 gauge. And I think the shot strings and the 28 and even a 20 are awesome. It's, you know, trying to find the shells. And
I do too. Do you think they're better, Dave? Because for some reason in my mind, seeing them on paper, they look so much better than a 12, and I don't know what that is. Do you think that's just my imagination, or have you seen that for yourself in your own patterning?
I've seen it, and I've read it where, again, I don't know if it's 100% factual or if it's been proven, you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, but I know some guys that say, oh yeah, by far a 20 gauge patterns really well compared to most 12s, and even again with 28s. I think I've even seen one or two people put their name to the fact that maybe a 28 pattern's better than any other load, just because of all the physics that go into it. I don't know it. I'm not trying to claim anything. I just have read
just from what you've seen.
And to me, I believe it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I'm telling you, like, 20 gauge, I got an over and under, and I've got a side by side that I shoot all kinds of clays with, and the one 20 gauge that I really have only taken to the duck blind, I think once or twice. It's a Caesar Guarini, so it's harder to, like, beat that up, right? It costs me a little bit more than my others. But my side-by-side Ithaca is just nails of a gun, and I love it. And it's, 40, almost 50 years old, and I can beat it up and I don't care. So I love taking that gun. I shoot well with it. I shoot, like you said, if I were to track it all, I'm like, last time I remember shot that gun, 2 birds came in, a hen and a drake mallard, boom, boom, 2 shots, 2 ducks laying there, shot them dead, and there's a lot to that. Like you said, also being more picky, more patient, because I find myself sometimes, knowing that I have 3 shells, just like, bah, bah, bah. I'm like, I I'm
Right.
going to shoot 2 out of that flock probably for sure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
well, no, that doesn't always happen
Mm-hmm.
because I definitely get complacent with that 12 gauge in 3 shells.
Mm-hmm.
Last couple of years, I went down to just 3-inch only shells, not 3.5s. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of guys still shoot that, but a 3-inch only shell. And then this year, I'll shoot 2 3/4 only.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Oh,
know, it's
really?
just
That's cool.
yeah, with that boss that they make, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's right.
That's what I started out with, and believe it or not, it was still, which I will not suggest that because I definitely was. I don't feel like that's. I don't like that, to be honest with you. Like 2 3/4 still, just like no.
Steel, yeah,
Yeah,
right,
I'm not a big
yeah,
fan of that. But
right. So no, I think that's great because overall, and I know a lot of guys around me gone do 20 gauges. They shoot the 20, Benelli, which they talk about a lot,
mm-hmm.
and they do really well with it. That's all they shoot. I'll finish with a quick story here. I won't name the name of the manufacturer, but this goes back at least 10 years. Bought a brand new gun, came in, went out straight to the St. Louis Gun Club in Pacific, shooting, trapping, skeet actually first. It's like, gosh, man, I missed several of those, and I kind of noticed it's like on the high house. And I know this is kind of picky, like, man, I'm definitely missing some birds. And so then I went and brought it from there to the other side of the property to a padding board. And I'll be darned, like just the regular 7.5 shots from 8 that I was shooting, not duck shot. But, it was in the summer, so that's what I was shooting. So and on the pattern board, no kidding, it's like probably 70-80% of it was above that horizon dot.
Oh wow.
Right? Really, really high. I'm like, gosh, this thing is shooting way high, and you can't change the beat on it, right? If it's shooting high. So anyway, I called the manufacturer. They're like, well, yeah, that's a newer gun, and we wanted to, it's a great upland gun, so everything flushes from your ground up. I'm like, well, shoot, I bought this for ducks. Everything's coming down. I'm not waiting for them to get on the water and then shooting them flushing upward.
Yeah.
So I literally, sold the gun and put on their full disclaimer: this gun shoots high. If you're a trap shooter or an upland shooter, this gun's for you. And a guy at the at the gun club bought it. It's just I knew something was not right. It just wasn't going to be the best waterfowl gun for me, and that's why.
Wow.
But I put it on a padding board. So anyway.
Well, that's where that paid off, because you could just get there more and more frustrated if you didn't know better to do that.
Yeah.
Now, what you're over and under that you're going to use this season? What gun is that?
It's a Beretta over and under. It's like a 690. I think it's a 692, and I couldn't even tell you for sure which one it is. But I've had it 3 years now, and like I said, I had it not Parkerized, but it had this Cerakote on it, and just like a really dark charcoal black on the barrels, and it's just, and then the stock is just an oil finish. It's not a gloss poly or anything, and it just shoots really well for me. Yeah, Yep.
And I guess there's no worries with rain or weather. That ain't gonna hurt nothing on that, as long as you got the barrel and everything Cerakoted.
Right, it should be fine. But like I said, if there's a day or two where it's like going to be frozen, or sleeting rain and heavy downpour maybe, but I got to go out and try to shoot ducks, I might leave it in. But I'm going to try to take it, every day. I love it. It shoots great. Actually, here's another quick story. They took the little bead off the front sight bead that it was a brass maybe colored, and took it off to Cerakote it, and then didn't put it back on. I was going to screw it back on, and I started shooting with it off at the range. I'm like, so I shoot with no bead on that gun. And to me, I'm just looking straight down a flat plane, and it's like I know where I'm shooting, and it works for me.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. Now I'm curious, what kind of choke? How do you like to do your choke? Like, do you like the top to shoot first and then the bottom second, or how do you set that up? And then what? So a 2-part question. First off, Do you want top or bottom shooting first? And then the second part is, what choke do you have for that as well? Like, what do you like to put as far as chokes in that?
So I like to shoot the bottom barrel first, just because somebody told me that and taught me that years ago on over and unders, because they say it absorbs the recoil a little bit better, because the top barrel first will kind of jump on you or come back a little bit higher on your face or cheek or shoulder, or, you know, so that's what I heard years ago, literally. So I try to shoot the bottom barrel first. You know, like right now I've got a pair of improved mods, you know, screwed into both of them, because it's like either or. Now, yeah, could I and should I get a little more picky, like a mod and then improved mod for the second shot? Yeah, I probably should, but I've done that also in the past, and I didn't know much of a difference. So, and my buddy, he has plenty of choke tubes, and I had doubled up on improved mods, so that's what I got in both of them right now.
Do you just have factory ones in there, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And they pattern.
They're factory, but
good,
they're extended. They are extended. The factory ones on them are extended. So yeah, it's awesome. I also like flush tubes too. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, right.
Really, I kind of, you know, sometimes I kind of prefer going back to the old school, just a flush tube, because I can swing it sometimes better. But if I'm shooting a lot and I'm really, really in a groove, then, you know, extra length doesn't matter to me. I'm, you know, splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah. I actually hunted, man, I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons with an over and under, because I had a shotgun stolen and out of my house, unfortunately. But I bought that. It was a cheaper brand. I really wasn't happy with it, to be honest with you. And it was for the same reason, like you said. I shot so high, it was unbelievable. But I tell you what, I wasn't running out of ammo like everyone else around me was. And anyways, I like shooting over and unders too, and just in general. So I really like your plan for this season. I'm curious to see how it works out for you, and that might be something that a challenge that I pick up here in 2 or 3 years. I like, because I kind of try to do that every season too. You know, like, this is what I'm going to do this year. This is the goal. I'm going to set a challenge for myself, and I like doing that. I kind of do that stuff every year in different ways, you know. But
yeah. Now, a couple guys I've seen in the past do, hey, I'm going to do 410 only, or I'm going to do 20 only, or, you know, or 20 only. And that's awesome too. So I'm just going to stick to this, you know, over and under, see what happens. So I'll let you know.
Yeah. Well, I know myself and everybody listening is probably be curious to see how everything goes for you, and you'll be on again before that, but we'll definitely going to have to get like mid-season update from you with all the things we talked about today. But
well, that's for sure. If we don't talk before then, for sure by the mid-season we'll do it. And yeah, thanks for having me on. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to be on here and converse with you, and it's always a great visit. The first 20 seconds I was still kind of getting my bearings here at my desk, so apologize for that. But yeah, what an awesome visit. I hope things are going well out there for you and the fam, and you know, let's just stay in touch, and appreciate everything you do for the whole waterfowl world as well.
I appreciate that, and tell Vaughn I said hi too.
I will.
She's working behind the scenes, always getting those calls out, like you said, quick, and who knows all the other stuff she does. So we appreciate her too, and you, Dave, I appreciate you coming on and the friendship building, and maybe even get to see you later this year. So in the person, in the flesh. So
yeah, we'll try to put it together. That's a good goal to have. So look forward to it.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.